let's say that you've produced a good resume, gotten some skills, gotten some certifications or education, or done enough cool stuff that you've got a nice resume, you've got a good job, a nice position. How do you advance your career? How do you move up? How do you get raises? How do you get more responsibility? How do you get to do whatever it is you really want to be doing? Because again, you may start off in an IT job, which is not a cybersecurity job necessarily, but hey, it's work and it's paying good money probably, and it's helping you to build the basic skills that you need in order to do a cybersecurity job. But you want to move up or move on or move sideways, from your IT job, your desk help desk job over to maybe a SOC analyst or security operations center analyst or something else. One of the problems with the technology business is that once you are in a job, especially if you're doing it well, they kind of want to keep you there. It's hard to find people to do those jobs. It's not so hard to find middle managers. It's not so hard to find project managers. It's not hard to find, you know, but people with certain skills are hard to find. And even by the time you get maybe a basic entry level IT job, as of this recording, it's even hard to find people to fill the entry level IT jobs. And once you are there, they tend to want to keep you there. That's good and it's bad. I mean, it's good in that you might be able to get a raise. It's bad in that you're not likely to be promoted up very much or very quickly. Unlike certain other industries, the IT and security industry doesn't really have a rank system or anything like that that you can advance through. It's not like you're working towards being partner at the law firm or anything like that. So, what do you do? What's the strategy? What can we expect? If you're working for a good company, at the very least, you can expect annual raises. But not all companies are good companies. In fact, barely half of the companies out there, in fact, probably even less, will automatically give you a raise. Often you'll have to go in asking for one. Now, we're assuming you've been doing a good job and that they're happy with you. If they're not, well, you're probably not going to get a raise or a promotion or anything like that. But let's say you've been putting in an honest 8 hours a day of work, you've been helpful, you've been good to work with, you've been on top of the technology, you've been doing a good job, you've been solving problems. And, if your employer is impressed with you, if they value your time and your experience and what you're contributing to the company, then at least annually you should be getting a raise. And if they're good, they will offer you that raise because they want to retain you. They want to keep you there working for the company. But a lot of companies, they will not offer you because they're trying to save money. And unfortunately, IT and even security are looked upon as cost centers, as a necessary evil, as something that we really wish we didn't have to be paying money for. All these geeks running around with their obscure references and weird TV shows and funny T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. Because a lot of people going into IT and security are unique. We've got our own culture quite often, not always, but sometimes we're unique people. I am, and yeah, we don't add to the bottom line directly like the sales department does or the marketing department does. We don't keep them out of legal trouble and get them out of jams quite like the legal department does. And similar for the HR department. Unless you're working for a company who is really a technology company at heart, whose product is a technology product, and even then sometimes it feels like you're not quite as valued as like the sales team. The sales guys are always the most important people in the company. So that could be a problem. And they may not always be proactive in giving you a raise. So you may have to take it upon yourself to do so. You may have to schedule a meeting with your boss and go in and say, hey, I've been here for however long it's been. No more than a year. If you've been there for a year and you've not gotten a raise, you need a raise. I mean, inflation, cost of living. If you don't get, like right now, I think inflation, I'm recording this in May of 2022. I think inflation's like 8% or something, which is high compared to the previous few decades. If you do not get at least an 8% raise every year, you're getting a pay cut. Effectively, right? Everything else has gotten more expensive, but you're not making any more money. So your standard of living actually goes down. So if you're not getting at least an 8% raise every year right now, you're getting a pay cut. Anything on top of 8% can be considered a raise, right? So, yeah, it's been a while. You've done a good job. Go in and say, hey, I've been doing a good job. I've been here for X amount of time. I think I deserve a raise. And you want to be able to have some things to point to. In fact, before you say, I think I deserve a raise, you might want to say, hey, I did this project. It worked out really well. You might want to pull out your good press folder, your kudos, your list of accomplishments, all the thanks and congrats and things that you've gotten from your team members and, for having successfully completed projects. You want to have something to show for your time since you're hiring or your last raise to be able to make the case that you deserve a raise. Document all that stuff. You can say, yeah, I did this, I did that, this worked out well, this project was a hit, and I think I deserve a raise. And see what they say. And of course, now you're on your own your own negotiation skills to negotiate the best deal you can. But what do you do if the boss says, maybe next year, maybe next quarter, maybe next month? Let's wait and see. Well, the board hasn't approved the budget for the next year yet, so let's wait and see. That's not a good sign. If they really want you, if they really value your contributions, they'll take care of you, like promptly. The money's there if they feel it's worth spending it on you. Anything else is just a smokescreen. So what do you do if they say next month? Well, now it's up to you. That's not such a good sign on their part. You could wait the month, but odds are in a month it's going to be next month or next quarter, next year, or whatever. Bottom line is, if you're not getting what you need, if you've not gotten a raise in a year, if you are not happy with the work environment, if you're not treated well, right now especially, it is a worker's market out there. The way to improve, the way to move up, the way to get a raise is to move on. Nowadays, the best way to get a raise is really to go looking for another job and take another job. It is not at all uncommon to get 20, 30, 50% raise, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're already on the low end. It's not so difficult for them to pay you an extra 20 or 30K to get you a 20, 30, 40, 50% raise. I have done that a number of times in my career. Unfortunately, the days of company loyalty or employee loyalty are past us. You are not going to work 50 years for the company and get a pension and a gold watch and retire and be able to have a nice retirement. Not anymore. Especially in California, but in many states, there's something called at-will or at-will employment. Basically, what that means is we do not have employment contracts. And some of you outside the U.S. might be thinking, this is bonkers, but yeah, the workers have relatively few rights here. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great place to be in the technology business and the money can be good, but you got to know how to play the game. And you've got to understand what at will means. They can let you go at any time with no notice. And you can leave them at any time with no notice. They may talk to you about employee loyalty, but be assured that as soon as the numbers get tight, as soon as they need to cut overhead to boost their stock price, they will lay you off. And a month later, nobody will remember that you were there. That's just how business goes around here these days, unfortunately. So you need to always be looking, always be job hunting. Really, you never know when a cool job is going to come along doing more like what you want to be doing, and it might come with a big raise. Even if you've only been in your current position a month or two, a cool job comes along and it's a big raise, you almost have an obligation to yourself and your family, who you may be supporting, to take that job with a good raise. If it advances your career in the direction you want to go and it pays more, I think you're obligated to. Now, some people might say, well, if I do too much job hopping, it's going to, and I put all that on my resume, people aren't going to want to hire me because they know I'm going to move on soon. Well, that kind of cuts both ways. If the employer wants to keep you, then they need to do what it takes to keep you, right? It's totally within their power to keep you. Generally, if they need to treat you well, they need to pay you well. You got to be doing interesting work. Hopefully it's something in line with your career. The only time job hopping becomes a bad thing is if you're getting fired all the time. If you're hopping jobs because you're getting fired, well, that's bad. But if there's any concern at all, like there have been a few years there where I changed jobs every year. The one place I only stayed like 8 or 9 months. Only a couple times has anybody ever asked me about it. And I always said, well, I moved on for a better opportunity. This job wasn't quite, there's one job in my resume, and I don't want to speak ill of the employer. I'm not going to mention who it was, but there was a place where I wasn't for very long. And it turns out that the job that I took there ended up being not so much security architect type work, but like level 2 tech support type work is what I ended up doing in practice, which was not very fulfilling for me. So I'm always looking. I found another job, and it happened that other job paid significantly more anyway. So if they ever ask me, why were you only there for X number of months? I can say, well, the job didn't turn out to be quite the kind of work I was expecting. It wasn't taking my career in the direction I wanted. And the next job, the next position on my resume, paid significantly more anyhow. These companies know you're there for the money. I mean, anybody who says otherwise, they're just manipulating you. They'll say, oh, well, we want somebody who's here for the passion because they love to do the work. They say that to try to manipulate or guilt you into taking less money. Ask them if they're in business for the love of producing widgets. No, they're in business for money, just like you are, just like I am. So be aware of those kind of manipulations, but always be looking. Always be interviewing, always have your resume out there. And, you may not be hitting it super hard. Like if you're totally unemployed, you'll be really pushing the resume and making connections and applying for jobs. But if you're in your job and you're happy with it and the pay is good, just keep open-minded to the possibility that there's something else better out there. Keep building your skills. Keep, putting things on your resume when significant things develop. You complete a really good project that you can add as a key accomplishment on your resume or something like that. Keep your LinkedIn up to date. Keep networking. And occasionally, a recruiter might reach out to you and say, hey, we're looking for someone with your skills. And if the job's, you look at the job description, it sounds like what you want to be doing. And there's a good chance they'll be able to pay more than what you're currently making. Then, hear them out. Talk to them. maybe go interview. Nothing wrong with that. Your employer is always looking for ways to get more margin on their product, to be able to sell it for a higher price, to be able to buy it from their suppliers from a lower price. You should be doing the same thing in your career. You should always be looking for someone who can pay a better price for your skills. And oftentimes what it comes down to is, in order to move up, in order to get a raise, you got to change jobs. Now, there is a particular Reddit post that I want to draw your attention to. Let's go back. Oops, that is still my resume from the last video I did. Stand by, I need to change the window we're looking at here. This one. There is a Reddit post. Now, if you look at r/sysadmin, which is very relevant to the cybersecurity career as well, they have the same problem. All of IT, all the technology related jobs, they all have the same problem. He says, I now understand why this sub preaches job hopping. Because a lot of times people will post in here saying, oh my gosh, my boss did this horrible thing. I'm so stressed. They treat me so badly. I've not had a raise in so many years. What do I do? Right? Or they'll say, you know, I'm in charge of this infrastructure, but it's really poorly done. They won't let me re-architect it. It's going to crash and burn any day now. And I'm just so worried. In all those situations, the people in this subreddit generally say, wow, that's terrible. You need to get out of there. Get a new job. And they're right. Quite, almost, I'd say 90% of the time they are right. So I'll provide a link to this, but this guy says, I recently resigned from my first IT gig I've had for about 3 years. I have to bust my A and plead and beg for my boss to give me a measly 5% raise. All the while I take on more and more responsibility and workload. I managed to work my way up to low 40s. Low 40s is not very impressive for anything as far as a salary, especially in 2022. Even entry-level IT jobs better start higher than the low 40s. When I brought up my job role, pay or workload, my boss would brush it off and tell me to wait until next year. So you can go read through this, and you can go read through other posts in here. And you will see that the common advice is to find another job. And especially in this environment where employees are in short supply, especially technology employees, people with skills, they're absolutely right. The way to move up, do a good job, of course. Move up within the company if you can. Hopefully they're great. Hopefully they'll give you, 15% raises every year and life will be good. But odds are, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to move to get more aligned with the kind of work you want to be doing. And again, I always say, take a job in general IT, doing help desk or whatever you can at first, with an eye on moving towards security, just so you can start building some experience. And then in a few years, you'll probably be able to migrate to a security specific job. And if you're not getting raises and they are not paying you market rate for your skills, then you will probably have to move. What's market rate for your skills? Well, it's whatever the market will bear, right? It's probably more than you're making now. There's always inflation. Things are always going up. Salaries need to always be going up. If you have not had a raise in over a year, you are already for sure below market rate. Market rate was whatever they offered you last year, right? It only goes up. So you need to figure out what you are worth out there in the market. So always be looking, always be open-minded, always be interviewing, always be sending out resumes, keeping your LinkedIn up to date, and you will find other opportunities and your career will advance. And again, don't let people worry you about job hopping. Now, if you change jobs every month, well, that's probably not so good, but you don't have to accept every offer that comes along. If somebody comes along, it's the same kind of work you're doing now. It's not really getting you closer to the kind of work you want to be doing, and it's only a $5K raise. Probably not worth changing jobs. If it's a 20K raise, well, okay, now we're talking. Some people will ask, should I allow my current employer to counteroffer? That's kind of tricky. It depends. Now, in the case of this guy, no way, right? He hated the work. He wanted to be out of there anyway. No, you don't want to stay there. Don't even ask for a counteroffer. Just give notice. Now, it's tradition. They'll say it's professional to give 2 weeks notice. Well, there was one time where I did not give 2 weeks notice because I was not at all happy with them, and my leaving at that time wasn't really going to put them out. There was one time in my career where I did not give 2 weeks notice. Generally, I really like my employers, and if I'm moving, it's just because of money, or sometimes it's been, as in the case of that previous job I described, where I ended up doing mostly help desk type stuff, not security architecting. Generally, if it's a big raise and I have to go and they can't match it, I mean, I'll give 2 weeks notice. I try to give 2 weeks notice. Like I said, there's one time when I didn't, but I try to give 2 weeks notice. The thing about asking them is then they're going to know, like, it shouldn't matter, but people are just kind of, what's the word? There's a word for it, but I can't remember what it is right now. Petty, I guess, is the thing. Yes, they're petty. Some bosses, and it's hard to know if they really are or if it's just part of the negotiating game, they'll be, you've been looking for other jobs? It's like your boyfriend, girlfriend found out you were cheating on them or something. They're just so ridiculous and petty. Of course you're looking for other jobs. You're looking to get more for your skills, just like they're looking to get more for their product. They want to make the company more money too. You want to make more money. But some people could get kind of weird about it. If you say, yeah, I've been made this other offer. That's kind of up to your judgment. The thing is, if you ask them for a counteroffer, some of them are so petty, they might give you what you want and then fire you a month or two later, like once you've already passed on that other offer. Because they know you're looking, they'll get you there to stay for long enough for them to find a replacement. So then you can be replaced at the time of their choosing. Now, it's a horrible business practice, but it's not entirely unheard of. So you got to balance that with, like, what is the character of the people I'm really working for? Would they be petty enough to do something like that? Do they really want to keep me around because they value me and, they think I'm good to work with and everything? That's kind of at your discretion. But quite often, I generally don't accept another offer unless it is just too good to pass up, right? If it's in a kind of work that I really want to be doing that I simply can't do for my current employer, there's no way they can counter that. If this guy's in a particular industry that I want to be in, and the guys I'm working for aren't, nothing they can do about that. Then the only thing counter offers come down to are money, or maybe you could bargain for more vacation time or some other benefits or something like that. But some employers kind of consider the relationship tainted once you've come to them asking for a counteroffer. It all depends on the kind of business you're working for, what kind of people they are. I have rarely looked for a counteroffer. Usually the raise has been so significant, or I needed a change and the other kind of work I was going into was such that I really wanted to be doing that work. They couldn't make an offer in that respect. I just end up giving my 2 weeks notice, doing everything I can during those 2 weeks to make the transition as simple as possible, writing documentation, training other people, handing off credentials or whatever needs to be done, and then moving on. But yes, the bottom line is job hopping. The way to move up is often to move out. To always be looking and accept another offer for more pay or a more favorable, fun, interesting position that gets your career headed in the direction you really want to be going.